Hello guys, welcome to the C++ tutorial series. In this video, we will learn about how to set up our development environment for C++ programming. My name is Kafui and welcome to my channel mod.dev. Please subscribe and like to help the channel grow and turn on the bell notification icon to get notified whenever I release a content on the channel. With that said, let's begin. What is a compiler? A compiler is a software tool that translates human-readable high-level programming code into machine code that a computer's processor can execute. This involves parsing the code, checking the code for errors, optimizing the code, and generating the final executable code. Because C++ is a compiled programming language, it has a compiler that performs all these functionalities. Most C++ programs are made up of source files that end with a .cpp extension and a header file that ends with a .h extension. The compiler therefore takes these files and converts them into what we call object files. The compiler has a linker, and what the linker does is it takes the object files and then converts it into a final executable code that the computer can execute. Below are examples of C++ compilers, that is the G++, the CLion Microsoft Visual C++, and many more. Now, the IDE we'll use in this tutorial series is the CLion IDE, which comes from JetBrains. IDE stands for Integrated Development Environment. It is a powerful IDE that comes with its own compiler, so therefore we don't need to install a compiler before running our code. The next alternative IDE I'll suggest is the Visual Studio IDE from Microsoft. I'll suggest you should download the Community Edition. Now, I've already downloaded the CLion IDE and installed it on my computer. So, I'll go ahead and open it up. After installation, launch the IDE. After launching the IDE, you come across this user interface. Click New Project. In the new project, after clicking New Project, the next menu that will appear is to ask you for the location at which you want to create your project. So I'll create it in the default location, but I'll change the folder name to C++ Crash Course. And then the next thing we have to do is we have to choose the language standard. So C++ has a lot of language standards. So I'll go ahead with the C++ 23, which is the latest language standard as at the time of recording this video. And then after that, you go ahead and click the create button. And then the IDE will go ahead and create your project nicely for you. So let's wait for that to okay. After that, it has successfully created my project for me. And then what it did was it generated a simple hello world file program for us. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and then close my project explorer and then go ahead and then eliminate all this generated code and write a simple hello world file from the beginning and then explain it for you. So first of all, in order to write your C++ code, you need to create a file and then a source file and then end the name of that file with the .cpp extension. Some people prefer to end it with .c++, but I'll go ahead and then end mine with .cpp extension as done by the text editor. Now, in order to write our C++ code, I'll first of all use the include directive to include the IOStream header file into our code. So I'll just go ahead and use the hash symbol and write include. After that, I'll use angle or less than symbol and write IOStream. So what this statement is doing is that, and then close it. And what this statement is doing is that we are using it to include the IOStream header file into our code, which is part of the C++ standard library. The next thing we have to do is a C++ program has what we call a main function, which is the entry point of the code or the C++ program. So every C++ program has a main function. You have to declare a main function in your C++ program. So I'll go ahead and declare a main function. And then when you are defining function in C++, you have to first of all write the return type of the function. Don't be worried if you don't understand anything now, but we'll talk about functions into details in later videos. So I'll go ahead and write the int which I want, which stands for what? Integer, or the return type of integer. After writing the return type of the function, then the next thing is the name of the function, which is what? Main. So you have to write the name of the function as main. You don't have to use any other name aside name, because this is the main entry point of what? Your program. So after writing the name of the function, what follows is what? Parentheses. The parentheses is where we put what? Parameters that we want our function to, our arguments we want our function to what? To accept. So parameters to the arguments we want our function to accept. But in this case, my main function will not accept any what? Argument. So I'll not put any parameters there. Don't worry if you don't understand anything yet. We'll talk about functions into details in later videos in the series. So after writing the parentheses, the next thing is what? Curly braces. And then in the curly braces is where we define our block of code or our logic. So what I want to do is I just want to output a simple hello world program. So in order to do that, I'll use the std namespace and then follow it by two colons, and then I'll use from the std namespace, I'll access the cout object from the std namespace, and then I'll use double less than sign, which is called insertion operator in C++. After that, I'll use double quotes. In the double quotes, I'll write the text hello world or the string hello world. Then after writing the hello world, I'll terminate this statement with what? A semicolon. So we terminate statements in C++ using what? Semicolon, which indicates to the program or the compiler that what? I have ended this line. Then what I'll do finally is to return what? An integer, which we normally in C++ return what? 0. Whenever we are in the main function, we return 0, which will indicate to the compiler that what? Everything occurred, or everything compiled or happened successfully, or our program executed successfully. So what we did was we declared a function called main, which is the main entry point to our code, and the return type of that main is what? Int, or an integer, because at the end of the day we are returning what? An integer, which is 0. And then we are using the std, which is part of the C++ standard library, and from the std namespace we are using what we call the scope resolution operator, which is these two colon, and then we are accessing the cout object. After accessing the cout object, we are using this symbol or this two less than sign, which is called the insertion operator, to output hello world, which is what? A string in C++. And after that, we are terminating our code with what? A semicolon. And then after that, we return what? An integer, which is 0, and terminate it with what? A semicolon, which will indicate to the compiler that what? Our program has executed successfully. So how do we see this in our console? So what you can do is you can click this play button over here in order to run your code, or you can use the shortcut. You can use the shortcut Shift plus F10, and when I do that, the compiler will therefore go ahead and then compile my code and then execute it for me. So you can see in the console that what? The compiler outputted hello world in my console. Let me just enlarge that. So you see hello world outputted in the console here successfully, and then it has returned or exited with what? The code 0. So we have indicated to the compiler that what? This code compiled successfully. So in case I make an error, or let me omit this colon over here. So this IDE is very powerful. You see that already in the IDE, it is indicating to us that what? There is what? An error here. And then most of the error messages are pretty much self-explanatory. So if I go ahead and then run my code, you see that in my console there is a huge error here. So I will just go ahead and then put it there, and then save it, and then run my code. And then the compiler will go ahead, compile my code or pass my code, and then execute it successfully for me. So this is just a simple hello world program in C++. And that's it for this video. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.